Welcome, fellow travelers. I'm Kat, and I'm joining Chibi and Vertec at the Golden Feather. Come on in, grab a seat, and let's share tales of adventure.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Golden Feather Tavern, where your hosts, Chibi and Vertec, discuss Ashes of Creation and important topics spoken about within the Ashes community. Every week we invite you, the viewer, and a special guest to pull up a chair, grab a pint, and join the conversation with us. Today is the 16th of January, 2024. Still not used to typing that out yet. We are on episode 193, Catastrophic Tale. And the traveling bard joining us today is Kat. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Doing pretty good.
Fantastic.
Our first Tuesday live stream for this.
Tuesdays aren't that bad, you know? Early in the week.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've been doing it on Fridays for the longest time, and so this is the first time doing it on a Tuesday. It just kind of feels weird.
Yeah, a little bit.
So, Chibi, what do we have on tap for today?
Today we'll be discussing classes, game systems, and mechanics, as well as other miscellaneous topics. And I would like to add that I feel like we've plucked a few very fine fan-focused pieces for you today.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah?
Can't wait.
Okay. Well, first off, though, before we get to all of that, Kat, can you tell us Axiom's official stance on the snores and why it's a terrible amount?
Oh, no. All right. So there's a bit of a civil war in our Discord over this topic. And there's no middle ground. You're not allowed to have a middle ground. You're either for or against the snores. And the sole reason that you shouldn't support this mount existing in Ashes of Creation is that snails don't have legs. That's it. They don't have legs. So it shouldn't exist in the game. They look just fine without legs, and it looks horrific. I hate when it stands up. It just looks terrible. I would much rather it just look like a snail mount. It would be perfectly beautiful, just as a snail mount.
Just as a snail mount. Okay. Fair enough. And welcome in there, Vladis. You rolled in at just the right time to hear the Snorse answer. So good timing there. Good timing. So,
I may or may not have made a poll for it.
Nice. So we can continue to get solid feedback, and we can figure out where the audience lies.
Yeah, exactly. Are you for or against the snores? We'll see. So far against. I don't know. It's tied now, so we'll see. We'll check back in about 5 minutes.
So, Kat, if you don't mind, could you tell the class a little bit about yourself and your purpose of existence in Axiom?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Kat. I am one of the senior officers in an Ashes Creation guild called Axiom. We've been around since the Kickstarter of the game, been testing ever since then. We grew quite a bit in the massive lazy peon surge of 2020, which is how I ended up in Axiom, or rather learned about the game and then ended up joining Axiom. Rose to leadership shortly after joining the community, and just been really loving talking about the game, really building up a good atmosphere, a good community for a game that I'm looking forward to, and facilitating, a guild that I'm excited to play with. And these guys are great. I'm very excited to go into Alpha 2 with them.
Nice.
Fantastic.
So, did you have another one? Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to ask about a rumor I heard about Bard being your favorite class. Is this true?
Absolutely. It's not a rumor. It's very well known, at least in our circle. I love support classes in general, but I do not play healers. I like only the support-centric So buffs, boons, providing a niche in groups, things of that nature. I've always enjoyed that playstyle since I played Lord of the Rings online. I'm always looking for a class that kind of fills that niche in MMOs.
Awesome.
Sorry, Chibi, I interrupted you earlier, I do believe. What were you going to say?
It's okay. I was going to ask, what, if anything, are you most looking forward to with Alpha 2 access this year?
Probably the thing I'm looking forward to the most is like actually being a guild, for lack of a better term. So, we've had a lot of people excited for the game, and we've all been hyping up the game for years, and we've played other games together over the years, but it's always like a scattered representation of the people that are really here for Ashes of Creation. So I genuinely am very excited to finally get all of my my fellow guild members together playing the same thing for the first time in Alpha 2. And then as far as Alpha 2 itself, with the community part of it aside, the node system is definitely something that I think is very innovative in the MMO space. And I'm very intrigued and very interested to see how this system shakes out, and how much it's going to change the landscape of MMOs of the future. And if this is something that's going to genuinely shake up the industry as the first really innovative thing I think we've seen in MMOs in a long time. Looking forward to that.
Okay. That's a pretty good answer. I like that, actually.
Same here.
I was gonna ask you, what does One Clash you Update showcase soon? I think we all know that answer. So I'm going to change it up a little bit. How soon do you think they're going to showcase Bard if we go into a little bit of a theory craft?
I mean, I think it's the only class that Steven has said in Discord that he said looking good, or the Bard is looking good. So that says to me that the class design team is probably giving some precursor presentations to Steven right now, and that might be an indicator that it's next in line, because we haven't heard anything about Rogue, and we haven't heard much about Summoner, but Steven had this like glowing reaction to the Bard, so I'm like, ooh, they must have just like shown him the current state of Bard because they're thinking about it being the next class reveal. So yeah. Yes, I'm biased, but also Steven has actually come out and, given us a bit more detail and reaction to that class than the other two. Yeah, definitely. I like that. And it looks like the chat has spoken, and we are primarily against the Smurfs. So rest in solace of knowing that the chat is with you, Kat. Good.
Boo! Rogue, please. Down with the snort. Oh, wow. You know what? I feel like this calls for a battle. Maybe we should see who survives the champion of the hill.
Ooh.
But the next question I have for you is do you think, with Alpha 2 being in quarter 3, it's going to be the beginning of quarter 3, the middle of quarter 3, or at the end of quarter 3?
Oh, man. I mean, obviously the safe answer is the middle. I'm going to go with late in Q3, because I think it's pretty inevitable that we might see some things either in spot testing, or things might crop up that might delay it a little bit. I think delays are kind of a guarantee in my mind, which may sound like pessimistic, but some of us have jobs that involve projects, and I think we all understand, even if we're just working on an essay for school or something, not everything goes right on time, and I think it's always safe to err on the side of being at the end of the Q3, just in case something occurs. So it's a pessimistic take, but I think it's just a realistic one.
That's fair. October for the House Cup, blood for the Blood God. The Loki won the champion of the hill.
For context, we hold a house cup for our anniversary every year, and Veloki was in my house this last year, and we won the house cup. We named ourselves the Beautiful Bastards.
Love it.
Because our tag color was blue, so we had to come up with a cool name for that. Good times.
I love that so very much. Okay, my final answer before we go into the main sections, or if Vertec has another one, is between 1 hype and 5 hypes. What is your hypometer for the upcoming live stream, development stream?
I'm like a 3, actually.
Like a 3?
Yeah, it's centered on PvP, and obviously PvP is like a really big part of the game, so it's an important topic, but the timing of the topic for me just seems like it's going to be kind of a soft core live stream, because a lot of PvP hinges on class design, and 3 classes we haven't even seen yet, and so any topic around PvP at this point just seems like it's going to be very old news very quickly the moment we start learning about how the other classes work. So it's not the most hype I've ever been about a stream. There's definitely other topics I wish they would discuss, but obviously a PvP live stream is one of the topics that I want them to cover, but I would prefer to see it like after we've seen the other class reveals.
That's fair. That's fair. Vertec, did you have any questions for Kat before we move on?
I was gonna ask, since you are a big fan of the Bard, what would you say is your number 1 hope for the final polished Bard product? As specific as you could be, because I know it's really easy to say, I want it to be a great support-based class.
That's a deep question there, because my most positive experiences with support classes was I played the captain in Lord of the Rings Online, which is a Master of None class, and so you could spec it to be an off healer, an off tank, or a DPS, and you could provide boons and buffs and healing to people depending on which of those 3 roles you wanted to niche into. And so it was a class that depending on the situation or what the needs of the group were, you could adjust your talents and your gear and the skills on your bar to really be to subsidize some weaknesses in your group play. And that's where I became kind of fell in love with support classes, because I enjoy the utility of what it is to be a support. I like playing classes where the choices of your talents and the skills that you choose to use really do matter. And I think that support classes, more than any other, that is where the value is. And in a good support player is they really understand their class and how to play it to maximize other people's performance rather than your own. And I think that takes a higher skill level to be able to think in that way as a gamer than it does for just being a DPS player or a healer or a tank, where they kind of know what their job is, whereas a support's job can change depending on the situation. And so it just makes it more interesting, more engaging, and more fun. So without getting specific, that's what I hope for the Bard to do. I really want it to be that Master of None, and I want to be able to play my Bard in all situations and be able to adapt to any situation in the game. Every meta requires a Bard. That's what I want.
I like it. I like it.
Honestly, fitting right with that, I guess being able to hot swap, at least in town, between multiple secondary archetypes to kind of fit the need of the day would kind of be really important for support classes, yeah?
Yeah, I hope so. I don't want it to be too annoying.
Oh my gosh. That's kind of funny because it's also a little bit similar to Summoner filling multiple positions, potentially. Which we'll be talking more about tomorrow night. And I'm just going to do a quick interlude into just a heads up. In about a minute, we're going to have an ad. I'm going to go over some real quick updates with the Golden Feather. And then I'm going to let Kat choose which class or game system or mechanic topic we're starting with. So first off, we have on Saturday, I believe 12 people joining us for our first ever Content Creator Summit. So we hope that you'll tune in for that. And tomorrow night we have our Tavern Talk, our second ever Tavern Talk, where we're going to be talking about Summoner more. So if that's something that interests you, please feel free to tune back in. And it's also open to members of our patrons and our regulars to come and chat with us in voice chat. Otherwise, you're welcome to chat here, Travelers of the Tavern, in the chat. And we have an upcoming community stream happening because of Chaffee. I blame Chaffee for everything. And aside from that, I think we're underway with a new stream schedule and live stream posting on YouTube. So very excited for all of those.
So many more days means it's a much more aggressive get stuff done.
Yeah, well, at least for the moment, because we are working after the Content Creator Summit, we are working to have a live stream on YouTube at the same time. So that way you have a place to go without any ads. So if that's something you would like to help us with our endeavors, we would greatly appreciate it.
And if you wanted to watch on both, that's fine too. Just saying.
And I should mention we have a certain Vladis joining us on Saturday, so very excited for that.
We do.
We do. And aside from that, if you enjoy what you are hearing so far, if you like this type of content, please like, subscribe, consider following us, turning on the notification bell to see when we're live. And with that, Kat, which topic do you think we should start with first? Which one's kind of like calling your name?
Let's do mechanics. I love
mechanics.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think I want to start with this one because we had the open hours conversation today, office hours with Intrepid in their Discord, and Viral, I think is how you pronounce this person's name, was one of the people that were a good portion of chatting for that. So he actually said that he had put out a forum post and he wants to see weapon mechanics in game with auto swap on ability. So I'm gonna kind of preface this since we have like 20 seconds left of this ad. So Viral says, I'll preface this discussion on I understand not all of the archetypes are complete and they're still hashing out combat. With the addition of augments to also provide change, I suspect even the default archetypes would have some of this incorporated. I do also remember the first mage stream, but this was a manual process and no ability associated with it. One of the features I'm looking forward to is the dynamic combat of using any weapon in the game regardless of class. So choice of weapon, type changes, the feel, pacing, speed, and other aspects of combat. Further specialization is achievable within each weapon's skill tree. Some ranged or melee abilities require a specific weapon to be equipped. Weapons that are equipped in the character's range offhand slots will be automatically swapped in and out as required by the skill. And players can select which weapon they use as their primary weapon for basic attacks. So with that, in general, what are your thoughts with that? Viral here is hoping to see some of these features shown in upcoming live streams so that we can provide better feedback, or at least maybe see where their current stance is on applying these mechanics. So yeah, what's your thoughts?
Oh man, that was a lot. So
it was a lot. This was actually a hot topic.
Yeah, because we gotta be, well, I say we, but the devs gotta be careful with class design here because it can't get too big and too convoluted. Otherwise, balancing is going to be a nightmare. And if you can't balance the game, then that's really bad for the game. So I think it already kind of, I know that we're going to have experience associated with weapons as far as like a skill tree associated with them. I guess it depends on the complexity of that skill tree. Like in my opinion, if we're going to have talents and augments, that already adds 2 layers of complexity to your build. And if we have another layer of complexity with having actual skill trees or points that we put into our weapons, as opposed to just a linear progression form of experience with your weapon, to me, off the top of my head, it just seems like too much. And although it's a great idea in concept, I think in conjunction with augments and the class system as it already is, it's 64 different types of classes that they're going to be balancing as right now. And we don't even know how much those augments are really impacting how the class feels.
Right. We're definitely getting into that next too. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a big,
oh my gosh.
like that's a really big deal that we know exactly how much an augment really changes how we play. If it doesn't change drastically how the classes feel, then maybe the weapons can round that out if they have their own talent trees associated with them. But I think I would much rather them emphasize that layer of complexity with the augments and just go all in with augments and make them truly unique or feel unique from each other than do it with weapons. It just sounds a little bit too much like New World for me. And New World's entire class system was that your weapon and the armor you wore determines pretty much everything about your gameplay. Whereas we have an actual traditional class system with ashes. So I think that might just be a little one step too far.
That's fair.
Yeah, and I know in Guild Wars 3, it's kind of the same thing. Your skills are decided by what 2 weapons you have sitting in your inventory. Personally, I think that the swapping of weapons automatically based on your skills might be a little bit excessive, but what I do like is having the ability to switch weapons, and then that alters the skills that you have available only in the fact that, say, a shield bash, you must have a shield equipped. It'll take you an extra half second or a second to manually equip that shield instead of your two-handed sword or whatever, and then you can use your shield bash.
Right.
But it's still available to you, it's still on your bar, it's just going to not do anything if you don't have the right weapon equipped.
Right.
But at least it's available to your character at any given time. But I feel that that's such a core part of being able to do combat in an MMO, is being able to have options, And if you are currently, we are set to not being able to swap our secondary specs out in the field. Again, like, all this is still theoretical and in testing and statements that have been made, etc. But if you have to set up your build in town for however long you're going to be out and about, and then you have to go all the way back to town to switch out your skill set, you should, at least have some other variability with you. Be able to switch, say, from like a flame sword to an ice sword if someone's coming at you with whatever armor is weak to ice.
Yeah. I like those ideas. The main reason why this topic kind of came up today was because when looking at the ranger class, there was a lot of very bow heavy skills. And that kind of begged the question, what if you have a different weapon? Then are those skills kind of useless?
It's like the elephant in the room.
Yeah. And it's one of those, Steven said anybody can use any weapon and any armor, but there's going to be some that are better geared towards that, like, class type. And there was something that was brought up. I was actually hanging out in our Discord with Chaffee, and Chaffee had mentioned it would be really cool if your secondary augment kind of augmented your weapon proficiency. And an example I could see something like this would be, I've been playing Overwatch, so please forgive me for this. I've been practicing the action cam and the action targeting versus the top targeting stuff. So I've been obsessed with Kiriko, and she has these adorable little kunais that she tosses out. I could see a Ranger X Rogue tossing out, like, throwing daggers or kunais. And then I could see a Ranger X, mage, using a wand to, like, attack at a distance. I don't know. sword and board more with dual daggers. I could see that. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, do you want to read some of the chat, Protect?
Yeah, actually, just real quick, I wanted to feed off of your statement with the
Okay. Nice.
Just had an absolute brain dump. Like my brain just entirely imploded as soon as I started my sentence. The whole entire thing just died on me. Yeah,
It's the best of
exactly.
us. Poof.
I just wanted to say, So, yeah, and I like that. That Hatter got me good with this one, though. As a fighter future main, I want to be able to unlock the true potential of all the weapons, says Veloki. And Mad Hatter comes back, you're going to be waving a wand around, casting punch? Gotta say, best fighter spell ever.
Yes.
But, Mad Hatter's next comment, though, you may have a sword, but that won't do anything to my air elemental. And see, that's kind of what I'm speaking about when I say it'd be nice to be able to switch weapons out, you know? And I remembered what I was going to say. So, I've always been on board with anybody can use any weapon they want, but they're not going to be exactly proficient with it. And they may have some skills for their class or their archetype that don't really mesh well with other weapons. Now, the way I envision this anyway is as a tank, I could run out with my shield and one-handed weapon, be it a mace or a sword or whatever they allow you to do your tanky skills with, right? And I'm going to be most effective like that. That's what a tank is quote-unquote supposed to have. I don't know if that's how they're designing it, but that's just the theory I'm running with. But if you wanted to just try to dish out some extra damage, you could absolutely bring a double-handed sword to start whacking people with, but a third of your abilities are just gone at that point. Because you don't have your one-handed weapon for some skills and you don't have your shield for the other skills. So 30% of your kit is just disappeared. It still exists.
I'm really curious how they're going to handle this, because Guild Wars 2 is like probably my favorite MMO, and the combat system in that game is absolutely my favorite combat system ever. And the weapons being tied to the abilities that you can use feels really good in that game. Like every weapon feels unique based on the class that you're playing. But at the same time, that class system in Guild Wars 2 is completely designed around that. Whereas Ashes is completely being designed around the augment system. And so if the augment system is essentially the equivalent of how weapons are treated in Guild Wars 2, where the augment that you have is going to determine the skills and maybe even the weapon proficiencies that you want to lean on, I think that would be pretty cool. Like, if you're going to be a tank, right? Tank primary, tank augment. It's like, obviously your weapon proficiency should probably involve a shield. And if you're not using a shield, then why are you playing that augment? kind of a moment. It's like, the game won't stop you, but it's definitely not optimal.
And you know what? That feeds kind of into what Vladis just said there. He says, personally, the ranger should be married to the bow, in my opinion. And I think that's really the golden key right there, is that classes in a fantasy setting, in movie settings, in book settings, and everything, they all have a typical thing that they're good at, because that's what kind of feeds into their lifestyle, so to say.
Right. Right.
And yeah, as a tank, you're supposed to be defending people, and the best way to defend people is with a shield, am I right? Or just completely annihilate everybody and be a super overpowered wizard and don't give anybody a chance to attack your friends. But that's beside the point.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so a tank should be married to the shield and a one-handed weapon. And I think rangers should be married to a bow, and rogues to daggers and things such like that. But
hey man, all I'll say is Legolas used knives and Aragorn had a two-handed sword.
That's kind of what I was going to bring up next, is that was actually the exact example that got brought up during today's office hours, which is actually, by the way, how I met Kat. I met Kat during the last office hours. That was really fun to talk about crafting. Yeah. Even if I was running late from driving home, but that's fine. But You were talking earlier about there being 64 classes. So the question I have for you then is 64 classes still a good idea? And this is coming from Ricard E, who says, after seeing the Ranger update, I'm very confident in Intrepid Studios being able to make some great classes. However, I'm starting to doubt the 64 class model. I'd rather have around 10 to 12 well-designed and unique classes that are also well-balanced. 64 different classes could be cool, but it will take a lot of work, time, and money to make all those classes feel unique, have depth in its gameplay, and be a viable option for PvP or PvE. Yes, the biggest hurdle is to create a good base archetype, but making the second archetype feel important and impactful will still be a huge hurdle and a big time investment. And before you give your thoughts on it, I also wanted to highlight what Nick says. He says there is only 8 classes. Don't believe the augments will drastically change the abilities until you see it happen on at least a single archetype. Ashes is a game with 8 classes and parties of 8 people, so it's a perfect fit. What are your thoughts?
I guess leaning on the conservative side of like, we know there's going to be 8 classes, so let's stick with what we know for now until we see how the augments actually work. Is 64 classes too much? I'm going to say no because I've seen it done in Arcade, and it's not something we have not yet seen in the MMO space. Is Arcade a perfect example of a balanced class system? Of course not, because when you have 64 variations of things, inevitably some are just outright better than others. But from what I recall from Arcade, and I'm just going to say that I only played Arcade when it actually released in the West, which was like, I don't know, like 6-8 years. I don't even remember. It was a long time ago. I was still in college. And you could cherry pick the skills that you wanted to use from some of the other classes and truly have a hybrid build that you could put together. And some were just better than others by a long shot. And I think the way Ashes can improve on that class design system from what Arcade did, if they go all in on augments being the cornerstone feature of the class design itself. The reason I am really nervous about augments is entirely based around the fact that Cleric is the only healing class in the entire roster. And we've seen across other MMOs that there are many different ways to heal in a game, and some styles are better in certain situations than others. Sometimes a Holy Paladin is just better in certain situations than a Resto Druid. And we also have a lot of people who are going to be playing this game that if they want to play a healer, they only have one option. And if they only have one option, then those augments really need to be different from each other. Like, I need to feel the difference between playing a melee healer, like a Holy Paladin, or playing a summoner from Final Fantasy, or playing a hot class from WoW. They need to feel unique because I want the healers to have variety. If you're only going to give us one class that heals primarily, then it needs to have maximum variety. So they kind of have to do that. They really have to, because if they don't, being a tank and being a healer in Ashes is probably not going to be very sexy. Because you're not going to have a lot of variety compared to the other classes that can probably DPS in many different ways or support in different ways and blah blah blah, and the tanks and the healers are kind of stuck with whatever toolkit they have. And that I definitely would feel pretty bad for those guys, and it would be bad for the game because we need our tanks and our healers, and so we want them to be sexy. We want people to want to play them.
That's fair.
I'm pretty much in agreement. Uh-oh. Are you chuckling about?
No, go ahead.
Veluki out there trying to play dodgeball.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I was kind of worried about the one tank, one healer thing, because that's really what it boils down to when you're looking at ratios, right? You have one tank, one healer, 2 support, and 4 DPS. So that's really what we're looking at, and that doesn't sound like it feels very good. So having those extra options to be able to adjust how you can play that specific role is what's really going to make the tanks and healers, and honestly even the supports, feel like they have a choice in what they're doing. So as long as they do develop something where they stand out and they're unique, and I can actually... And here's my biggest gripe with some statements that have been put out before, is that tank is going to be the super powered, super prime tank, and everyone else is like second class citizens. And if you're a tank something else, sure, you could, with a question mark, tank some stuff, but you're not going to be very effective at all, which makes sense. Like, you can absolutely just be an off tank, or a, hey, you know, I'm just trying to survive longer while I support everyone. But that flavor variety of 8 different tanks is what's really going to make or break it. And I really hope that the tank mage, let's say, is just as viable and just as strong as a tank, just in a different way.
Yeah, I agree. Mitigation tank. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Like in other games, mitigation tanks are historically like one of the harder tank specs to play, because you actually have to press your buttons at exactly the right time, because your entire build is based around that, is not having a ton of armor or a ton of health. It's really evading or actively blocking the thing that's coming at you. And it's like, I would like there to be an option for that for the tanks, and I would also like it to be the most viable spec for pushing some of the harder dungeons and stuff, you know, because maybe it's a mitigation based tank that does really good damage, right? And so a really, really solid tank could do both if they're good enough.
I was gonna say that I feel like this is also where Intrepid is trying to, 8 classes, 8 party members, they're trying to find a spot for everybody. You're gonna have your support plus your healing, so with the Bard, and then you're gonna have Summoner, who's probably helping out somewhere, because Summoner also has the ability to help with healing to a limited degree. But I'm excited to see how the Cleric Augment works for people, because I do know that there's going to be things like, let's just use Summoner as an example because it's on the brain at the moment. If you're able to summon a pet to help with healing a little bit of HOTS over time, kind of like the Scholar in Final Fantasy XIV, I could see something like that. So I think that is set up well for that, but I'm not going... I don't completely agree or foresee that every group of 8 is going to have one of each, you know?
Oh, so. Definitely not. That's not how groups organically come together.
Yeah. Right.
That's not how servers are formed.
No. So I could definitely see them pairing up with like 2 tanks, 2 heals, and then the rest are damaged. Yeah, exactly, Basil. Same brain. But I kind of want to backtrack to what was said in chat. It was a little bit of a thread I was trying to follow. And it was going back to, you know, the playing for a ranger with the bow and it being like the most optimal choice. And, you know, they started talking about how, you know, non-competitive players, for them, being optimal isn't really all that important. And, you know, Vladis brought up that if you are a competitive player, you're probably going to a website that tells you how to build, aka a meta, you know? Yep. And I think you're going to see the people that look for what people are telling them is the meta. And you're going to see people probably playing around with the secondary and saying, oh yeah, you think that's the meta? Watch this. Let me cook, you know?
Yeah, I think the like historically in MMOs, you know, way back in the early days, there's this like, you know, rose-tinted glasses over the fact that, oh, it used to matter what you chose to play and no one knew the answers to everything. And you really had to like actually learn about what you were doing in order to play optimally. I think those days are pretty much gone forever.
Right.
They're not coming back. Because not only have we conditioned ourselves to go to websites like Icy Veins or Snow Crows for Guild Wars 2 in order to play optimally, but it's also just so readily available now that even someone who maybe isn't intent on playing optimally, they're still going to stumble on those sites just to get something viable to make the game a little bit easier or more convenient to play. So I think that everyone just is going to end up looking for third-party sources, no matter what Steven does and how much he wants to limit add-ons and APIs and stuff like that. It's just most people just don't want to put in the effort of designing their builds, and that is a play style in and of itself. And I think the people who do actually theory craft these highly competitive builds in MMOs are a very niche and very valuable crowd of people, and they love doing that. And they're also on the cutting, bleeding edge of succeeding at content too, because they're the first ones to discover the metas and find out what really works, and that usually means that they're on the bleeding edge of completing that content above other people. So
the fun part is trying to figure out and try to think to yourself on how long they've been sitting on that info before they released it to everyone else.
Exactly.
Steal the secret for the first couple weeks, see if we can get it down.
They got their money's worth before they
shared it. Yeah.
But Ratsu asked, what should a rogue's role be in an 8-man group ideally? And since we're talking about classes, I figured that'd be a decent time to drop that in. Personally, I envision rogue as being someone who's opportunistic, right? They're sneaky, they take advantage of weaknesses and whatnot. How neat would it be if they capitalized on status effects and whatnot that other players can put up? Maybe they will have their own, but they can't keep 100% uptime on them. But if other people can keep uptime and they can choose from their kit of which abilities of their own to hit, to take advantage of another status effect that someone else just put on there, I think that would be really neat, really cool idea. But yeah, other than that, it's probably going to be your typical skulk in the shadows, do some backstab stuff, always stay behind the bosses, single target damage, nuker, not very good in AoE, but also because they're trying to build in utility stuff, definitely finding sneaky little passageways, and potentially, the only ones who can lockpick actual doors instead of just those silly little boxes you find in WoW.
Yeah.
In groups, I want rogues to be like the tank's best friend in groups. Like that's how I see the rogue.
Like the rogue kind of like CCs them.
Yeah, tanks love that. Like they love having someone who's capable of marking, CCing, or just in any way controlling targets in the group, because a tank only has so much available in their toolkit. And rogues usually complement that really well in other MMOs I've played. So yeah, I think their job really is to set the tank up for success. And the nice thing about setting up the tank for success as a rogue is if the tank is able to control the mobs and position them properly, your damage tends to go up, rogues. So help out your tanks in positioning mobs and setting them up for high DPS.
Speaking about positioning mobs and stuff like that. I want to take us over to Wandering Mist, who is a friend of ours for a while, a community volunteer moderator, and just all around cool person. We've had him on the podcast a couple times. He posted a question asking about favorite and least favorite boss mechanics. And just a disclaimer, he did not make this thread as a member of Intrepid Studios, and nothing in the thread is meant to provide feedback to the developers. It's purely for fun and an interesting discussion point. And he posted this on January 1st. And so he wants to know your favorite and your least favorite.
So coming up with a favorite is really hard because the least favorites immediately come to mind. So most of my raiding experience has been a World of Warcraft. I did Mythic raiding there for a while back in Legion, and then mostly just been a Heroic raider for the last few expansions. And I've raided in Guild Wars 2. Killed all the bosses probably 50 times in that game. So the mechanics I hate the most definitely are the instant wipe mechanics.
Right.
I'll guess I'll rephrase that. Instant wipe mechanics in fights that last more than 5 minutes.
Right.
So, for example, most end bosses in World of Warcraft they're about 10-minute fights. They have 4 phases. Each phase lasts like 3 minutes and some change. And so it's a really long fight. And for there to be instant wipe mechanics in the final phase is so damaging to a group psyche.
Right.
It's like we just spent 9 minutes just for the whole raid to wipe because one person made a mistake. Those mechanics are truly, truly awful. And I think that it breaks apart friend groups. It creates drama, and it sucks to be that person, right? Especially if you've done it more than once. Like, you feel like you're the reason that your raid isn't successful or isn't downing that boss. And I don't like mechanics that put people in the situation to feel that way, especially if it's really late in the fight and you really didn't have a lot of time to practice, or maybe it's the first time you even got that mechanic, right? Maybe it's just random and you just happen to get it and it's your first time having to deal with it, and you wipe the group because you didn't have muscle memory down on what to do, right? So
Right.
it's just very demoralizing. So that's my least favorite. My favorite mechanics are very much created around having to coordinate individuals going to do different things during the fight. So one of the bosses in the very first raid wing in Guild Wars 2 that was always really fun was a boss in a center platform, and there were NPCs that would fire cannons on above platforms, and it was in a rotation that these cannons would go off. They did a lot of damage to your party on the main platform, so you had to go up there and kill those NPCs and take out the cannons in order to not wipe your raid. And so you had to pick like basically 2 or 3 people to rotate going up and to kill those guns all throughout the fight. And if you didn't do that, you were definitely going to wipe, or it was going to be really tough. And I like having things for people to do other than whack on the boss. Those are really fun, and I've seen a lot of unique, creative ways of doing that. Especially, I think Guild Wars 2 probably emphasizes doing that the most in a lot of their fights. They always try to tie in some kind of secondary or tertiary mechanic that you have to contend with throughout the fight, and you really need dedicated people who are going to handle that. So it's less whack-a-mole, tank and spank, and avoiding bad stuff on the ground. Like, you have to actually actively go do other things as part of that fight. And I think that makes it fun and engaging. It makes you feel like you're learning. And the people who step up to do those special roles in a raid is something to kind of take pride in, that they've mastered that mechanic and they're the go-to guy that has to go do that thing. They gives the DPS something to be proud of. Other than numbers.
Yeah,
Mad Hatter says Whack-a-Boss.
Whack-a-Boss, the new arcade game. Yeah, I'll start with my least favorite, and that is poorly timed abilities in general. And what I mean by that is, a lot of the time it is like the one-shot type mechanics, but it's one-shot mechanics that either have almost no forecasting whatsoever. No, there's almost no tell to it. It's just you have a 1-second reaction time or something like that. Or one-shot mechanics, or really large damage either way, large raid damage that is not on a timer, but everything else is on a timer. So it's just whenever the cooldown happens, it might cast, maybe. So you could end up going through a really rough spot because of all the timed things that are supposed to be coinciding just at a certain point, and then that big thing comes in, and it's just why did you?
You're giving me PTSD from the Mistress fight in WoW back in Legion. That, like, what you just described is exactly that boss fight, and oh my god, what a horrible fight.
Yeah.
And what's your favorite?
Yeah, I actually have 2 favorites.
Okay.
One of them was from WildStar, and it was one of the first bosses in the first dungeon, or first raid rather. But either way, it was a giant, weird-shaped monstrosity that you had to run across a bridge to get to his giant floating platform. But his giant floating platform was made of a lot of hexagon shapes. And the thing was, he would do some various skills. One would be like a breath blast, and that could kind of scatter some people or do a bunch of damage. So you had to run around, and you would like randomly face in directions. Another one is he'd plant a bomb on some people that would destroy part of the platform. Like that's it. It destroys a part of the platform within a certain radius. And if you didn't run all the way to the outside and drop it on one single hex, then it was going to drop multiple pieces of floor out of the way. And that was the quote unquote enrage, is if you as a group of players destroyed your entire floor, you were over, and that was it.
Right.
That was actually really cool, just because of the way it was set up. People had to communicate and react well and plan well and actually be strategized on kind of what you're trying to do. Or else you could just completely take yourself out. The other one is the, what was it? I forget his name. Was it the Drake Master or something like that in WoW? In the raid that you had to fly up really high?
Dragonfly
Spire or something like that?
I don't...
Yeah, Slurp is asking if you're asking about Experiment X89.
Yes, Experiment X89. Yes, that was one of my favorites, just because it was neat. It was fun. There was coordination required for players that could absolutely, like, the boss's mechanic was exactly the same, but you could mess up your entire party so easily if you didn't pay attention. But you could also execute absolutely flawlessly if you just communicated a little bit. But yeah, the other one I was thinking of, it changed every week. Like which drakes would unlock would rotate out every week. And depending on which ones you got, I think there were 5 different drakes, and you could free them in a certain order, and it would give the boss specific abilities, but it would also give you a specific advantage. And every week it would be a different set of 3 out of the 5 that you could get for your help.
I remember this fight. I don't know why I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was actually, it was like a very cool take, because like you said, it changed every week. So every weekly reset, you're like, oh, I wonder what 3 dragons are going to get this time.
Yeah, that brings me to like my favorite stuff. I love things that are things that you can use to dispel, things that you can use to interact with it. Things like there's the, oh my gosh, I forget which one it is, but it's the whole production, and you can talk to the wolf after, and he does the "run away, little girl, run away."
Oh, yeah.
There's like a whole thing. There's a lot more to it than just standing and fighting a boss. And I loved that. It was unique. It was not your typical raid, if you will. I really also loved things that you can actually use some of your utilities that you don't really use during raids very often. And it gave more meaning to having those utilities. Yes, Karazam. I really enjoyed those. Yes, the opera event. And I don't know. It feels nice, because if I'm going to have utility skills, I feel like they should matter. And I think they mattered at one point, but then along the way, as MMOs kept going, specifically World of Warcraft, or I think there's some in Final Fantasy, those stopped mattering as much. And it became less important, kind of like crafting becomes less important unless you're end game, you know? But my least favorite, I'd have to agree, not necessarily a single individual one-shot, but things that CC you and then is overlapped with something that does a decent amount of damage. So there's like no way you can get out of that. And you're like, why?
Yes.
Why would you do that to us? Which I think it would be cool, maybe just for a little bit of theory crafting. I think it'd be really cool to be able to get out of any sort of ACC, kind of like with Dead by Daylight, where you can try to like wiggle to get off of the killer's like shoulder, or get out of the trap if there is a trap that you got stuck in. I kind of like those things, just because that gives you a little bit more autonomy over it, instead of being like, well, I'm stuck here, especially when it comes to PvP. Like, I'm stuck and now I'm dead.
Oh yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like winning the lottery of you're dead.
Yeah. And speaking of death, did you have anything you want to add to that real quick?
No, I was just gonna say it's more engaging if the reason that those two things overlap is because you made a mistake and then you can adjust for it. But if it's just completely, utterly random every single pull, then no, that's a bad mechanic.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, agreed.
Speaking of death, Gandrin was wanting to give some death animation feedback, and I want to kind of get your idea on this. So I will try and short and sweeten this a little bit. The current state visual surrounding death, when Keenan got murdered by Steven during the Ranger Showcase, the Keenan collapsed into a pile of ash, and Gandrin thinks it could be changed to provide better tactical feedback and battlefield immersion. So, for example, upon reaching 0 HP, the player should instead collapse on the spot, leaving their body as is, completely visible on the ground. Sorry, real quick, Laughables, we don't have Vec armor. We do have some shiny, spiky armor.
Could possibly kick one of those in.
Yeah, okay. But Gandalf was saying when the player is revived through like a Cleric's resurrection spell, their body should burn brightly as they are raised back to life, kind of like the whole Phoenix thing.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, what's your idea on that? Like, would that look a little more interesting?
That's scary. It's terrifying.
Oh, sorry. We're talking about death. I figured this would be appropriate.
Yeah, it is.
One of us. Sorry. We're not here for that.
I guess from a practical standpoint, if you evaporate, so say you're in a really large scale fight and your body evaporates immediately into ash, as someone that is killing maybe a specific player or targeting a certain player, maybe I want to loot that body specifically because maybe I know that they're carrying something that I want. I would like to still have a visual indication that is their body.
Yeah, exactly.
And then maybe after I loot it is when it, turns into ash or something. But I do like the idea of the res animation being part of that, because I think visually that would look really striking and be something that's visually unique about the game in terms of res, and that would be kind of cool, especially if there was I don't want a dramatic Phoenix animation. I think that would be a little corny, but just a tiny little bit of flames going in there and make it look a little bit like a Phoenix rising from the ashes when you res somebody. But
that would be neat.
Yeah.
What do you think about cosmetic shop purchasable? You get a tombstone on your ashes so everyone can see your name.
There's some pretty hilarious finisher stuff you could buy in Guild Wars 2's cosmetic shop. My favorite is the unicorn. So when you so in Guild Wars 2 there's down state. So if your health bar expires, you go into a down state where you're not quite dead yet. You can recover, or someone can come in and heal you really, really quickly and get you back up to get you back in the fight. So it's not full dead. But one thing that you can do is, we call it spiking, where you go up to a person who's downed and you hold down your action key and your character literally spikes that person with a flag, or
oh my gosh,
or you drop a cow on their head. It's a finisher, right?
That's funny.
And my favorite was the unicorn, because it's the unicorn that comes in on a rainbow and tramples on their body and then it departs on a rainbow. It's hilarious.
That's funny.
That stuff's pretty entertaining. It adds some flavor to the game. I would be okay with that being in the game. Some people probably would be a fan because they're all about, no, I don't want it to ruin the look and the theme of Ashes, but a sense of humor is also healthy.
Yeah,
True.
Yeah.
True. Fair enough. But I like the idea of the Ashes having something a little bit more, but I don't know really what, because I do like the idea of the ash pile and whatnot. It's a neat theme to everything.
Yeah, I agree with that. Also, I'm just loving everything Ash is coming up with, like the animations, like when you're building stuff, and it's just kind of more so coming to life around you. I'm enjoying that.
Yeah, the attention to detail has been so impressive in these live streams, and I think I've said this before when I was speaking to Vladis about the Node live stream that we got, where we got to see the village for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, did you see that they had bugs buzzing around the lanterns already?
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, they already had like bugs buzzing around. They had little animals and birds and stuff hanging around. It's like, that's like finishing touches kind of stuff, you know? Like, I don't expect to see that in pre-alpha footage at all.
Right.
Like, that's like the cherry on top.
Those are like little final touches usually. Yeah, exactly.
And I was like, and it's already there. And it's nice. It gives me this nice warm fuzzy that the devs, the care factor by the devs is extremely high. Their attention to detail is definitely there, but the passion for the project, like that to me is what screams passion for the project, because they're already wanting to put small details like that make the world as a whole, little by little, feel more immersive and more alive. And we're already getting that even in pre-alpha stuff. So that's really impressive to me, and a really good sign.
Yeah. Laughable's asked on that, do you guys think the lighting at night was bright enough? I believe they just worked on actually, I think, making it a little darker.
Yeah, I don't think bright is really the concern of mine.
Yeah.
It was more like it's not diffused enough. It's too localized.
At least in terms of the lanterns, yeah.
Like the light itself should go farther but dissipate a little slower.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It felt like it was a little strong for the night, kind of diffusing. Yeah. So too localized. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Thank you, Raka. Speaking of our lovely outfits, we haven't terrified you yet. It is the last day of getting Alpha 2 access officially within the shop that they have over on ashesofcreation.com and going into their shop. But there may be some future chances at playing Alpha 2 if you are not able to join in, and that could be raffles or things like that. I know there's other content creators who have already gotten tickets or Alpha 2 keys that they could give away, so I imagine Intrepid would probably continue down that vein as we get closer to Alpha 2, and mine's not doing it at the same time. Aww.
Snickers. Thank you.
Hey, Snickers. Okay. But yeah, aside from that, we had the office hours today. The general vibe was archers felt heavy towards bows. There was a lot that archers could do that didn't feel like there was a lot that they couldn't do in comparison. And they're really looking forward to seeing how mobility feels with the buffs and debuffs going forward. So yeah, looking forward to it. But how about I do a little bit of a speed round while Vertec gets some arts up? Yes?
Already? Well, I get some arts up.
Yeah, we have some fan focused stuffs.
Like that one?
Yeah, like that one. Who could that be? You know?
I don't know. I like owls though. Owls are pretty cool. They look really good. They're like this noble visage, you know, every time you look at them.
So this is Kash from the Lore Forged podcast. Sorry, they changed their name a couple of times. Not Lore Seekers or anything like that, Lorecast. It's Lore Forged. And they recently changed their little tavern name to the Sleepy Owl, and he is practicing wood burning. And he's wood burning their little icon that they have for their podcast.
Oh, I didn't notice that. I thought he was drawing it, but yeah, now I see he's
Right?
actually wood burning that.
It's really,
pretty
really cool. It was very nice to watch. So this is a work in progress. It's not done yet, but it was really cool. I wanted to share it. But Kat, have you played Final Fantasy 14?
Oh man, so I have tried to get into Final Fantasy 14. I did the story up until the most recent expansion, which I forget what it's called, the Shadow something. So yes, I have played it.
Okay. Did you play Bard?
I did not actually. I played a samurai because I have a very big gripe with Final Fantasy, and that gripe was the pacing of the combat. It has a very long GCD, and I heard that samurai was the class where it would bother me the least, and so that's what I went with, because I was just trying to get through the story.
That's fair.
And get to the end game without quitting again because the combat was frustrating me. Yes, I should have played
Brad, thank you.
For sure, but I went with the samurai because of the GCD.
Okay. Well, my question to you then is, I'm assuming you're familiar with Bard in Final Fantasy 14, who are able to play instruments or do other things outside of combat in Final Fantasy 14. So, would you like to see that in Ashes?
Of course. Like in Lord of the Rings Online, the minstrel is the healer, and they are basically a bard. They play different types of instruments. And what was really cool about the minstrel was the kind of like in Baldur's Gate, where when you use your skills in combat, the sound that you make is based on the instrument that you're actually holding. And the minstrel was like that too in Lord of the Rings Online. So you could go in with a lute or a harp or drums or a flute. And so it was funny because we'd have like two minstrels in our raid group, and I always know which one was Tekro and which one was Pathogen, because he always uses a lute and he always uses drums. So you could hear the different healers in your raid, and who was casting abilities based on the sound of their weapons. So I'm also an enjoyer of being able to both watch players actually form bands and play live music as a form of player-driven content. And I also am an enjoyer of using macros in order to play music for people when we're waiting on a world boss to spawn, or maybe we're gathering up our raid and I just want to play some music for people.
Some background for your raid guild, your guild meeting, I mean.
Yeah, exactly. So I have always sincerely enjoyed being able to play instruments in MMOs. But my worry with Ashes is that Steven doesn't seem to be a fan of macros, and the other games that I just mentioned, that was kind of the primary method of playing like full-on soundtracks or sheet music to things, is utilizing a macro as opposed to playing it manually, because I don't actually have any musical prowess. I cheat using macros in order to play music. So I'm hoping that either they're going to have an exception for it, or they're actually going to put it into the game in some way, shape, or form, like integrate it somehow, that maybe we have people who can actually maybe compose something in game that they can share with other people and allow them to play that as well. I think that would be a great like player driven content feature. I don't need it to be there day one of live, but I think it's one of those features that goes a really long way in any MMO, because it's all player oriented, right? It's going out and actively playing the music or making the music and just, spreading the fun, spreading the love.
Okay. Awesome. Vertec, why don't you go ahead and swap over to TheCatsLock? This is the concept art thread from that I found on the forums. Also, hi, Grumpy Guy. And you found who this is the same old podcast. Same old podcast.
Welcome back in. Welcome back in.
Raka says, I said it in a previous stream. I would love to see a piano roll so I can compose songs or remake stuff like Hildegard von Blingen has made. Look up on YouTube or just Bardcore. Bardcore for sure. If you played Bardcore, I would definitely ask that you record it and send it to us so we could play it in the background of our videos. Would love to have that.
DC.
And this is some really cool art. I really like this. Let me grab this and share it to you guys so you can check out the rest of their art.
Yeah. There's only so much I can show on this little screen and make you get the full impression of what's going on there.
Yeah, but this is the posted on January 2nd, and it's the hunter that we saw with the, I believe, the Vec.
Pandas.
Lots of cute stuff in there. And speaking of the most recent stream, Pawkets is working on making some really awesome. I've had the pleasure of being able to see the work in progress on this. By the way, you need to update this thread, Pawkets. If you haven't already.
Need more progress pics.
Yes. We both do, Laughables. We both do.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm very much enjoying these wonderful cosplay pieces that you are making. Oh, you mailed it away? Is that what you said? Did you take any pictures before you mailed it away? Sneaky. It is stunning. And actually we have more of the photos in our Discord, as well as I believe Axiom's Discord.
Yeah, I think so. Well, we have a lot of art in our Discord, but I will say that 99% of it is AI related.
Pawkets says, I was so excited. I told them to send me pics, and I think it's better. Okay, that's fair. Can't wait to see it. Excited to see that. But yeah.
Fantastic stuff, though. I wish I had this kind of skill. I have zero actual, crafting something from nothing artistic skill. It's good stuff. All right, well, I think it's just about time to pack up. Actually, it's a little bit past our normal time to pack up, which we've been trying to keep this down to an hour to make things easier for the YouTube folks and not give them 3 hours worth of video to try to catch up on every week. But, Kat, do you have any random last... do you have any final words? And, oh, wait. I gotta do a full tilt. Wait, here we go.
Oh man. Here we go.
Do you have any final words?
Oh my goodness. It's terrifying. No, just a reminder, hey, Alpha 2 packages are going away tomorrow. We don't know if they're ever coming back. And if you're looking for a guild to play Alpha 2 with, please consider Axiom. We are PVX, and we are definitely emphasizing having a good culture and a good atmosphere internally leading up to the game's launch. And our mantra is based around organization and our ability to get access to all of the content in the game, while also emphasizing having a good atmosphere and a good culture alongside that. So if that sounds like it vibes with you, check out our website, join Axiom, and or you can come to our Discord at discord.gg/Axiom, and you can open up a ticket directly with leadership, and we'll answer any questions you have.
And I can agree with that, because everybody I've interacted from Axiom is very nice, including Kat, who I randomly was like, hi, I chatted with you on office hours. Want to be our guest?
I'm nice. So. I'm nice externally,
Yeah. Vertek, any final words?
Would like to thank everybody for hanging out with us. It's very much appreciated. We have always said that the greatest support that you can possibly give is just showing up and chatting and hanging out with us.
I'm sorry.
Say what?
May have started this early. I'm sorry. Go.
Oh no. Oh gosh. Oh wow. I see it now. Okay. We love you guys. Thanks for stopping in. We'll catch you next time. And okay. Bye.
Later.